This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benneroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening? Who are the newsmakers? What's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. John Bailey with Peter Katz, the anchor for all seasons. Jim Benneroff is on assignment tonight, and it's been another week of chaos around the country and the world. However, in Westchester, things have been good. Peter, the headlines.
Well, we'll see if in the next 27 minutes we can add to the chaos and confusion, right. Okay? Here are the headlines as we're recording this program on Friday, July 20. Westchester Commissioner of Health warns the county of a new unpredictable tick presence in the county. Locations undisclosed, they don't know where it's showing up quite yet, but White Plains Week shows you how to remove a tick, any tick. It is tricky, or a ticky. The new one is called a longhorn tick. A viewer from our area takes pictures of the area around where the Trump-Putin summit takes place in Helsinki. We'll show you those photos. The New York State Comptroller, Thomas DiNapoli, has launched a new search tool on the Comptroller's website. And using this, you can search for abandoned property. Type in your name, see if you have money being held by the state. More than $300 million is believed to be held by the state, which really belongs to Westchester residents, and all they have to do is claim it. New York State and some other states file a lawsuit challenging the Trump tax plan, specifically eliminating the SALT deductibility, limiting to only $10,000 what you can deduct from your federal taxes for state and local taxes you pay. Westchester County will build a memorial to Christopher Ridley. He's the Mount Vernon police officer killed by Westchester County Police while he was apprehending a fleeing suspect. On August 5th, the Good Counsel Development hearing continues at the White Plains Common Council's meeting that day. White Plains' office vacancy rate reported to be 19%, the lowest in 8 years. However, it has not recovered to 2008 levels when it was only 10%. That, of course, was before the big recession really swallowed up the real estate industry. Maple Avenue rental apartments near completion, while the city still does not have a redesign of the downscaled White Plains Pavilion project in the 2018 hole in the ground across the street from those apartments. 49 years ago today, July 20th, 1969, astronaut Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. It was indeed one giant step for mankind. Imagine that. Coming up, we're starting the countdown now to the 50th anniversary of mankind's first walk on the moon.
Yes, it was really a very prideful moment for America at the time. It was.
I remember Walter Cronkite being flabbergasted, being speechless for a moment when it actually happened. It was quite an event. But the most amazing thing is, 50 years ago. How old does that make us?
Well, we were.
Let's see. I was 2 years old at the time. That's what it was, right?
Exactly right. Yeah. Talk about fake news, right? Be that as it may, let's go to the White Plains Week video newsreel. This is the area around Church Street where Christopher Ridley a policeman in Mount Vernon was killed inadvertently by Westchester County Police, and the county legislature has decided they will build a memorial to Mr. Ridley. The design has not been determined.
It's going to be right at that spot.
That's right.
That you photographed, John. Yep.
And this is long overdue, and it's really something that needed to be done a long time ago. Risked his life, and due to circumstances, a tragedy happened to him. And we salute all police officers who face this risk every day. Now, the big news that captured the fascination of the media this week, other than the Trump-Putin situation, was ticks. This is Sherilyn Ambler, the
she's the county's health commissioner.
Right.
That is an enormous tick in that picture.
Yes, an engorged longhorn tick, which is shown on the left. There's a close-up of the tick. And she also had this to say about how it was discovered.
Both Westchester County Department of Health and the Calder Center test. They go out and they run little bags, burlap bags, through densely vegetated areas. They collect the ticks and they test them for disease. So in doing that, they have noticed a new species of tick, which is the Asian longhorn ticks.
How large is the tick?
The tick, when it's fully engorged, is about the size of a pea, so it's fairly small.
But visible. A pea is visible.
Visible. It is visible. Yes, I would say it's easily visible.
Even at first bite?
I think they're sufficiently large enough for you to see them. I mean, now that's an adult tick. Of course, nymphs are always much smaller than adult ticks. Nymphs are harder to see because they're substantially smaller. And so for a nymph, you do have to be a little bit more observant. But that's, again, why you want to wear light clothing when you're out of doors, so you can see them on your clothing. And, you know, they do crawl, they do move. So if you see something dark on your clothing moving, I'd be concerned it's a tick.
And she also said that it was very important that you remove a tick in a certain way. Is this shot of her demonstrating it, putting a tweezer right on the back of the head of the tick.
Now, they also have prepared kind of a public service message explaining in detail how to remove a tick. If you don't do it properly, portions of the tick can be left behind, and that can become infected.
Right.
So it's just to try to be educational that we'd like you to take a look at this particular video prepared by the Department of Health regarding tick removal. It's something that you can use not only for yourself, your children, other people who might be exposed, but also if you have animals who romp in the woods or go into tall grass, or even just when you're out walking your dog by the side of the road, it's possible for a tick to jump on for a ride. So here's how to remove a tick.
Ticks are common in New York State, and they can carry disease, so it's important to check for ticks and to know how to promptly remove a tick if you find one attached. First, you'll need a pair of fine-tipped tweezers like these. They work much better than blunt-tipped tweezers or your fingers alone. You can do this yourself or ask a friend to help. Before you start, clean your tweezers with a little rubbing alcohol on a cotton ball. Now grasp the tick where the mouth is attached, which isn't always easy to see, especially on ticks the size of poppy seeds. But if you gently lift the tick with your tweezers, you can see that it's attached like a hinge. That's how you can tell where the mouth is. Get as close to your skin as possible with your tweezers. Now pull in a slow, steady, upward motion away from the skin. Don't twist, jerk, or wiggle it out. Your skin will pull up as the tick detaches, just like when you pluck a hair. Afterward, clean the bite site with rubbing alcohol and a little antibacterial cream. If the mouth parts stay in your skin, you can either leave them alone or try to remove them with tweezers, as you would a splinter. Keep an eye on the bite site for 30 days, watching for any kind of rash, including the telltale bullseye rash for Lyme disease, or for flu-like symptoms such as headaches, muscle aches, or fever. If any symptoms do develop, you'll want to see your doctor and make sure to let him or her know the date and location of the bite. Remember, not all ticks carry disease, and your risk for disease is greatly reduced if ticks are removed promptly. Knowing how to safely remove a tick can help keep you safe from tick-borne disease. Learn more at health.ny.gov/tick-free.
Okay, so there's more on the whole tick situation on WPCNR.com, where we deliver lots of Ms. Endler's comments. But we will receive pictures this week from a Westchester resident who was in Helsinki and was outside the Trump summit meeting. This is the Mannerheimente Boulevard, showing the crowds which were away from the site of the palace.
You know, so much happened inside the summit meeting. You didn't hear much about any crowds or demonstrations outside. I was
the police
kind of
cordoned
surprised
it
when
off.
I saw these pictures.
The police cordoned it off at Podjesplanadi Street, which is one of the main commercial.
Beautiful pronunciation, John.
Yes. Well, we didn't have the AP ticker, you know, to show that. And this was the presidential palace where the meeting took place, shot off the internet. And there were also ads in kiosks like this, placed by commercial enterprises that protested and dealt with the Trump and Putin visit. And then there were the occasional signs that was pasted on walls. Our visitor said he did not get pictures of the signs that many of the protesters were carrying because they got ahead of him. And he also said that merchants had said that many American tourists were telling them that they didn't believe in Trump policies. They were telling the Finns that. Meanwhile, the Trump situation has been the talk of the country this week.
Indeed, John, and it was confirmed this week that there's a Russian agent working in the White House. In fact, he's working in the Oval Office and sits behind a big desk there. President Trump made it clear in the aftermath of the NATO summit last week, where he did the bidding of Russian President Vladimir Putin and worked to break up the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and in the news conference Monday in Helsinki after his private one-on-one meeting with Putin, which lasted more than 2 hours. Trump took Putin's side against the United States in an appearance which earned a tidal wave of criticism from around the world, including Republicans on Capitol Hill and even Fox News. Typical was Fox News anchor Neil Cavuto, who called Trump's appearance in Helsinki disgraceful. Dozens called what Trump did treason. Despite 4 days of trying to clean up the mess, the White House has been unable to spin itself out of the hole dug by Trump. And if you read the official White House transcript of the joint news conference held by Trump and Putin after the private meeting in Helsinki, you won't know that this happened because it was censored from the transcript. But an Associated Press reporter asked Putin a two-part, very direct question and got a two-part, exceedingly honest answer from the Russian dictator. The question: did you want President Trump to win the election? And did you authorize a Russian plan to help him win? The answer was brief and direct, in sharp contrast to Trump lying throughout that news conference and taking Russia's side and throwing the United States under the bus.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because he talked about bringing the U.S.-Russia relationship back to normal.
Do you hold Russia at all accountable for anything in particular? And if so, what would you consider them that they are responsible for?
Yes, I do. I hold both countries responsible. I think that the United States has been foolish. I think we've all been foolish. I do feel that we have both made some mistakes. I think that the probe is a disaster for our country. I think it's kept us apart. It's kept us separated. There was no collusion at all. Everybody knows it. People are being brought out to the fore. So far that I know, virtually none of it related to the campaign, and they're going to have to try really hard to find somebody that did relate to the campaign. That was a clean campaign. I beat Hillary Clinton easily, and frankly, we beat her, and I'm not even saying from the standpoint, we won that race, and it's a shame that there can even be a little bit of a cloud over it. People know that, people understand it, but the main thing, and we discussed this also, is zero collusion.
Now, with the White House Director of National Intelligence not even being aware of it, Trump invited Putin to the White House. And that is supposed to take place this fall, just before the election. The New York Times reports that Trump has known since before his inauguration that Russia attacked the U.S. election process. Trump was briefed on January 7th, 2017, and shown hard evidence of the attack ordered by Putin. Some of the evidence came from U.S. sources very close to Putin and included emails and other documents creating a solid paper trail of what was going on. The implication is that indeed the CIA has spies right in the Kremlin. Having known all of that, that means that every time Trump publicly denied that Russia had attacked the election, he was conspiring with Russia to cover up its criminal activity. Aside from any criminality on Trump's part, it's clear disregard for his responsibility to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, which includes our process of government and our laws. Republicans, such as Trump operative Congressman Devin Nunes, are trying to block Democratic efforts to subpoena the U.S. government employee who was in the room with Trump and Putin in Helsinki as a translator. There's no known record of what went on. They want to find out from the translator what was said. Trump would not allow a recording to be made or any note takers to be present. The Russians may have secretly recorded the meeting. The Kremlin says Trump and Putin made some agreements, but the White House hasn't announced any agreements. What did Trump bring up with Putin? We don't know. It's possible maybe he asked Putin to forgive all the loans he has from Russian sources, which has financed Trump properties. Or maybe asked for more money to finance more Trump or Kushner buildings, or a go-ahead for the Trump Tower in Moscow he's been trying to build for more than a decade. One of the two scheduled trials of Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort is scheduled to begin next week, and government prosecutors this week submitted to a court about 700 pieces of evidence. Many of the documents to be entered in evidence seem to prove Manafort had a lavish and expensive lifestyle, which was far beyond the income level he reported on his tax returns. 29-year-old Russian national Marina Butina has been arrested in Washington, D.C. and charged with being a Russian agent. And it appears that at least some of her activities in the U.S. were designed to influence U.S. politics and help Russia and the Trump campaign. Among other things, it said she used sex to get close to leaders of the National Rifle Association and used the NRA as a conduit to funnel Russian money into U.S. political campaigns. The NRA gave the Trump campaign about 10 times more than it has ever given to any political campaign, about $30 million. And where the NRA got the money from is now being looked at. While our attention has been focused elsewhere, the scandal involving the children of immigrants separated from their families continues. The government failed to meet a deadline for returning toddlers and infants to their parents and is on track to miss another deadline for returning older children. The American Academy of Pediatrics says what the Trump administration is doing is nothing short of government-sanctioned child abuse. Trump is again spending the weekend at his resort in Bedminster, New Jersey, with the costs coming out of our pockets and at least some of what we're being charged going into his. John?
Well, there is also another Trump matter that you wanted to bring up, and that the Attorney General of the acting Attorney General of New York State and other Attorney Generals have filed. And
indeed, New York Attorney General Barbara Underwood was joined by the attorney generals from New Jersey, Connecticut, and Maryland in filing a federal lawsuit to have the Trump tax provision, which limits deductibility of state and local taxes, including real estate taxes, on your federal tax return to only $10,000 a year, declared unconstitutional. Among the evidence cited in the lawsuit, Republicans, such as Trump administration official Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, saying the change was intended to, quote, send a message, unquote, to states to get them to change their taxation and fiscal policies, and Stephen Moore, who advised the Trump campaign on tax policy, saying the SALT changes were, quote, death to Democrats, unquote. Here's part of what Underwood had to say on Tuesday.
Last year, for the first time, Congress drastically limited the deduction, imposing an enormous burden on taxpayers in our states through a law that was deliberately aimed at coercing New York and similar states to change their taxation and fiscal policies. The new cap on the state and local tax deduction is unconstitutional for two main reasons. First, it goes beyond settled limits on the federal government's power to impose an income tax. Second, Congress deliberately targeted New York and similar states for unfavorable treatment, seeking to coerce our states into changing our fiscal policies and the important public investments and services those policies support. An analysis by New York State shows that this attack on our state will cost New Yorkers an additional $14.3 billion in 2018 alone. That is outrageous. New York will not be bullied, and we will not allow partisans in Washington to hurt our people or interfere with our policies. We've filed suit to fight back against this unconstitutional attack on New York and our state's fundamental rights. We will not stand by and let Congress pick the pockets of New Yorkers.
Powerful.
Pretty powerful words, huh?
I tell you, this is an interesting issue because I wonder what would happen if New York declared its secession from the United States, declared itself an independent state, and withheld all taxes.
Well, that's a thought.
It is. I mean, we could have. I'm not kidding. Yeah. How would they react?
I don't know.
Maybe we don't want to know. Look, New York is the number one
if New York
funder
if New York were to do that, California certainly would do it.
Yes, sir.
California has the 6th largest economy in the world.
United States of Blue America. You heard it first, and we'll see.
Anything else going on that we can laugh about?
Well, it's not laughing at. It's just wondering how long things take in White Plains to get moving. We have here a picture of Maple Avenue, a video of Maple Avenue. There we are, taking pictures of the new apartment buildings on the south side of Maple Avenue, and there is the second rental building nearing completion, but across the street is this huge hole in the ground still there, left by the White Plains
This was
Pavilion.
The Pavilion Mall.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there is a redevelopment project that has been approved. They have, submitted some changes, scaling it back a little bit, so it seems.
Yeah. Well, we haven't seen them.
No sign of any activity there.
No activity whatsoever. Not even a rat scuttling. There's nothing there. And but the question is, we've got the White Plains Mall project that now apparently is moving ahead. They changed the zoning, and we now await a site plan on that.
Yeah, as we reported last
Yeah.
week, that White Plains Mall thing, it's going to be a denser project, a little more activity there. But then again, it ties in with the train station redevelopment thing they're pushing. But the pavilion being stalled really is in sharp contrast to some figures that came out this week on the White Plains office vacancy rate, which seems to indicate a good degree of vitality.
Yeah, Cushman Wakefield said the office vacancy rate is down to 19%, which is very positive news. It's the lowest it's been in 8 years. But
not as low as it has been historically.
No, it was that the Delfino administration said that it got down to 10% in 2007 when the mayor was going out, and that mayor was going out, and at 10%. So that shows how much the last, let's see, 10 years have lagged in activity in the county. It has not been a super recovery. It's really gradual and drawn out, and these delays taking place in developing White Plains are really starting to hurt us.
Well, yeah, there are other developments, in the pipeline. The Good Counsel thing is still working its way through the Common Council, the hearing process. They held the hearing open, and so they resumed that on August 5th.
August 5th may be another.
Some opposition has been starting to surface there. So that takes some time. One thing, though, John, in our history that happened much faster than most people thought it would was the Americans, us, getting together as a country and having a concerted effort to put a man on the moon. And it actually happened. Today, as we're recording this, is the 49th anniversary, so we're coming up to the 50th anniversary of landing a man on the moon, Apollo 11. Neil Armstrong was the first to step off the moon. Now, we thought it would be kind of fun to go back in time and take a look at the video. It's rather crude looking.
At the foot of the ladder, the LEM footbeds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches, although the surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine. I'm going to step off the LEM now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Surface is fine and powdery. I can pick it up loosely with my toe. It does adhere in fine layers, like powdered charcoal, to the sole and sides of my boot. I only go in a small fraction of an inch, maybe 1/8 of an inch, but I can see the footprints of my boots and the treads in the fine sandy particles.
Now, the interesting thing is that the original video recording made in Houston was erased by NASA. So what we just saw was a recording that was made in Australia, relayed in real time from Houston to Australia to a NASA facility there. That has been restored now by NASA, and I think we'll be seeing more of that as we get closer and on to the 50th anniversary of the moon landing.
Well, it's time for us to take off back to Earth now. This is John Bailey saying good night for Peter Katz, Jim Benoroff, and White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.